Pledge of allegiance first.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, we have in person, Commissioners Ward and Sorber, and online remotely, Commissioner Fawcett and potentially Commissioner Kaiser. If we can get him in. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
One public comment.
So do we do the public comment actually is
After.
after, excuse me. So I would entertain motion to approve consent agenda items, minutes, financial report, and approval of February check register. Okay.
Moved.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Comments from the public. We have Brady. Would like to comment. Good morning, Brady.
So I looked at your agenda item today, which is about your capital budget, et cetera. Pretty grim. You, I'm sure, are aware of more than anybody. And I can't help but think what a better financial position you would be in if you were getting, oh, I don't know, an extra $1 million a year. And it's a decision I think you made an error, and you can correct that at any time. All it takes is 3 of you. And I think it's time to do that. Okay, you will pay your entire fee. And next will pay their full amount, and you can make that decision today. And just as they gave you notice, you give them notice and say effective April 1st, you need to start paying, or we're canceling our lease. It's that simple. You need the money. Secondly, I am giving you notice that based upon a recent ethics department investigation about denying the access to executive session at the St. Helens City Council, I am media. I am privileged to attend executive sessions based on that decision, and I'm giving you notice. I don't know if you have any special form, I just let you know. But I plan on attending your executive sessions as a media representative. And if you need paperwork, thanks.
Okay. Business and the agenda is fiscal year 26. 27 capital budget plot priorities, so 25, 26, excuse me.
Waiting for the show. Nothing online yet.
That's like a gurgling stomach. Yeah, it's a coffee pot. That's a really loud coffee pot.
Can you see it now?
Not yet, nope.
Yeah, you can do it.
That's the good one.
It's not slideshow though. Gotta click on that.
Good morning, commissioners. Can think of a better day to talk about our fiscal year 2026 budget process. So this first slide is a picture of the Columbia City dock used by Clearwater Paper. Slide. Talk a little bit about our budget process to start out with, and the first goal is on the financial plan is to coordinate with our budget and priorities. Budget is a big part of that financial plan. And so my goal is to outline our budget priorities with the elements of our strategic plan. Today, we'll talk about our capital and major maintenance budget for fiscal year 2026. And our goal today is to gather feedback from you and all through this process on how to help us develop our 2026 budget. Slide. Right, an important part of our discussion should be financial reserves. Why is that? Managing our financial reserves helps us manage risk and strategically manage our resources. Maintaining an operating reserve helps mitigate risk in the event of unplanned circumstances. And mapping out larger projects that can take years to complete, we should be strategic reserve funds to aid in completing these projects when the time comes. Liquidity is also important to manage when there's a lag between expending and receiving funds, as an example with grant funding. Next slide. Just briefly here, I have this slide to look at our current LGIP balances. The LGIP is like our savings account, or that's for our cash investments. So these figures are as of February 28th. The total is 14.3 million. Our general fund approximately 9.6 million. Open Talbot, that's with the insurance funds we received, it's roughly 2.5 million. And then we did move some funds over and created a reserve for Westward at 2.2 million. Slide. All right, this slide, I know it's a little bit busy, but try to encapsulate a couple different things on one slide here. But basically, I want to outline my recommendations on our reserve policy for FY26. Just a little background on this. Instead of targeting a specific amount, I identified ranges to provide some flexibility if needed. So you can see that I come to operating reserve there, it's 2.5 to 3.5 million. Just backing up and looking at our operating reserve, I'm estimating we probably need around 6 months of operating reserves to be conservative. And our operating expenses last year were roughly 5.8 million end of FY. So 6 months of that is in that $2.5 to $3.5 million range. And the operating reserves are for unplanned things that come up that mitigate risk. So a strategic reserve, looking at projects down the road, things we need to hold on to funds for to allocate to future projects. Recommending a range of 7 to 9 million for that reserve. And that's broken down into 3 accounts. The general fund, roughly 4.5 to 5.5 million. Port Westward, 1.5 to 2 million. And Pope and Talbot, 1 to 1.5 million. So we go through the operating reserves, and so we've got that money that we're holding on to the reserve for the future. How much do we have left over to apply towards our capital and major maintenance projects? So that's the final bullet point there. So my recommendation for fiscal year 2026 is 4.2 million. And that's broken down between the general fund, Fort Westford and Hope and Talbot, was 2.3, 1.4, $500,000 respectively for each one of those funds. So next slide. Okay. Give a little bit of lag. So this is just graphs outlining my recommendations. Just 8 million in strategic reserves to allocate towards future projects, 3 million in operating reserves, and 4 million for maintenance projects. And that's kind of, those aren't the ranges, but it's just a way to visualize funds are being broken down for reserve. Right. Forward, right, I'm gonna go through site specific projects now and funds that we're contemplating, you know, and recommending that we allocate towards. So the first couple slides here for Westward, Beaver Dock engineering and construction phase 1 seismic. As we all know, that's a project that we're working on. And the total cost is estimated roughly 3.9 million. I did add a $200,000 cushion. And then we have received a $2.7 million Connect Oregon grant, which means remaining balance for the port to fund at 1.4 million. So that's the Beaver Dock allocation at Fort Westford, 1.4 million. Next, Krista. Next project at Fort Westward is the substructure walkway at the Beaver Dock. And that, on the picture there, you can see a little bit. That's the walkway that goes along side of the dock underneath it. Elliot can probably explain a little more detail how that works. And I just know that it's estimated at $250,000 to fix that walkway, and I can go through the details on it, but we're recommending 250,000 for capital budget on that project. Next slide, Krista. All right, we'll move on to the Columbia City Industrial Park now. This is a picture of the Clearwater dock where they load the shavings on barges there. This project is a phase project, so the first will be engineering and permitting on the piles to have them replaced, and then the next phase will actually be the construction. So this first phase is for the engineering and permitting, $250,000. That's what we're budgeting for that. And then we've got a major maintenance project. We've got some old siding boards that are stored over near the magnetics site here. We have to dispose of those, and we did have a little bit better estimate at one point, but I think that's gone up now. So we're budgeting up to 90,000 to get rid of all those boards once they're considered part of the site. I understand.
Creosoted boards or
It's a hardy plank, like a concrete board, more like a. Coming apart.
Hopefully it'll come in less than that, but we're trying to be conservative and it's a 90,000 for those boards, and we have a FDC installation at higher height. Needs to be done, estimate 57,000. So the total between both of those projects is 147,000. All right, next slide. Now we move on to the Scappoose Airport. And there's a number of projects here, both capital and major maintenance. Just a little background on the airport, as you're well aware of the FAA and the ODA fund a lot of the capital type projects with runway rehabilitation and maintenance. So our cash requirement on the those projects are pretty low because we're only roughly paying 20% on between FAA funding 90% and ODA funding 8% or less. So definitely helps out with the airport. But so on the capital side, we're still have some to finish up on the emergency generator project. And that was originally budgeted, I believe, at 130,000, but it's coming significantly higher than that. So we're nice, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but we did get ODA funding for part of it, but still have some to complete in FY 25 this year and then possibly into FY 26. So and then just looking ahead, one of the big projects coming up is runway rehab phase 3. Some of that might start in FY 26, but the majority of it will probably stretch into FY 27, and that's over $4 million project. Which of course will still be pretty high with that project, so we're estimating 323,911. So the total capital there is 424,911. In terms of major maintenance, we're looking at a couple of different projects. There there's some repair that needs to be done on a T hangar for 75,000, and then we're looking at starting a roof replacement cycle or project. So I believe there's 10 hangar buildings out there, and we're going to try and do 1 to 2 roofs a year somewhere, something in that neighborhood, so that we don't have to do them all at one time, but they are within the next 5 years and need to be replaced. So we're allocating 135,000 in FY 26 to do some roof replacements out there. Hopefully we can do more than one for 135, but that'll get us down the road a little bit. The directory sign has to be replaced. And then on building 90, which is the new hangar building, there's some requirements there from the fire marshal on fire suppression, and there's 2 options. One is a foam system and the other is a wet system, and so you see option 1 and option 2. Option 1 is for 150,000, option 2 is for 35,000, and it depends on where that starts out as to what option we go with, whatever the fire requires. So it could be somewhere in between there. We don't know, but anyway, we put both options in there. And then that comes up to 420,500 on the capital side for the airport. All right, next slide. I will move into the water and Scappoose Bay Marine Park. No capital projects that we're considering in the budget for FY 26 at this point. Looking at pavement maintenance at $60,000. That's on a cycle. So many years we do the maintenance to keep up with it. And it's time to do the maintenance there at 60,000. And then there's some work on E-float that needs to be done with dock boards, estimating $7,500 for that project. You're planning to have a cellular capability for the entry gate. That's estimated at $10,000. Looking at a parking enforcement management system, AT related, either it's a whole presentation of it in itself, but it will be most likely a good option for us moving forward. We're estimating 13,000 to complete that project. And then there's some flotation work on the port boathouse and docks, and need to be done, estimating 7,500 for that. So roughly 100,000. And It's got this state green parks, 98,000 there, so. All right, on to Multnomah Industrial Park. The maintenance shop, they're getting moved into the old Winter Circle building, as you know, or we don't call it that anymore, but
Yes, we do.
the roof needs to be replaced there, and so it's estimating 38,000. Replace the roof. There's another roof that that needs to be replaced, and looking at 250,000 there. And then there's potential for environmental investigation at MIP, and we can talk about that at a later time, but that's maybe 100,000 for that one, for the investigation. So a total of 250 on capital and 138 on consider maintenance on capital expenses. Okay. All right, and then I'm combining 3 different sites into one slide here with McNulty, Milton, and Pope and Talbot. On McNulty, we're looking at some site readiness, kind of getting it ready for development of some sort, and that would be part of the project is contemplating where to go with McNulty, but it's not being utilized right now. I mean, we shouldn't say I'm the finance guy, I shouldn't give too much into it, but I think it would behoove us to be forward and invest in that. So we're allocating up to 200,000 for engineering and permitting to help site development there. Also looking at roof replacement in Milton, 180,000. And then at the Pope and Talbot site, this would be action area 1. We talked before, it's the Railroad Avenue property about the environmental project. There's a lot of different moving pieces that come into play with other things that are going on, but we're conservatively just estimating like 500,000 for cash needed for that project. And then also on Pope and Talbot, the northern access road, we want to get that through like with gravel. That's 20,000. Time to use the Bailey Bridge for regular use going forward. Its condition is a concern. So that's one of the main reasons why we're looking at the northern access road right on the side. And just 2 other things here, not site specific, looking at some accounting software, CRM, which is like a ERP software. It's to help manage our portfolio of business essentially here at the port. Right now we're well antiquated in some areas, and investing in our software would help us significantly, but coming along with that is it's a huge investment in time and version into going from one system to another. And we're doing due diligence on that now, but looking at actually doing this conversion going into FY27, but we've got to do the legwork and everything from FY26 if we're going to do it. So anyway, it's already just estimating $100,000 for that work to be done.
That's not just the software.
That would be the
Implementation.
Yeah, implementation. And then we're also looking at a all-terrain forklift for the maintenance. Price of $20,000. Total for cash required there is $120,000. Okay. So that's all the fun picture slides. This is the summary of what we've gone over this morning. So this will be our major maintenance budget, looking at a total of $4.218 million. And there's the summary of it below. The different funds are on the left side there with the total in the bottom at 3.3 roughly, and capital, 913,500 in maintenance, so. The total comes to that 4,218,400. So. Your feedback is welcome through this whole process, and so. We just want to try to align our budget with our strategic plan. And, just want to talk through this with you as we move forward in the budget process. Going into, the next couple of months here, we'll be talking about operating budget coming up in the April meeting. Then end of April, May will be our budget committee meetings. And then first part of June is the adoption of the FY26 budget. So things are in your stride cycle here, and this first part is the capital portion of it, major maintenance. And so this will help inform us on how to develop that part of the budget, which also will integrate with the operating budget. So appreciate your time, and first open to questions or feedback.
I think this has been very good from my standpoint to see this. Is there an income budget broken down at some point? Fairly specifically or not, or?
The next part we'll be talking about is our
Operating budget, and that would be,
revenue.
yeah,
and expenses.
okay, because they feed together, obviously. Yeah, okay.
Good question.
Yeah, to dovetail off that too. So I know some of the things brought up here, that maintenance stuff and different facilities, those are all very liquid, loose numbers, correct? I mean, those haven't been bid, or nobody really knows. We're just taking guesstimates on these, right? Best case scenario, worst case scenario, I should say. I'm gathering that. Is that?
Yeah, there's projects that are in all different stages of readiness. Some that are, those figures are more firm than others, but we're
Okay.
A budget, as you know, is a working document. We're just trying to make our best guess and assumptions going into the next fiscal year. Ideally, and I'd like to work on this, is to have a multi-year kind of for these projects, because these larger projects can take 35 years to get done. Just because we're not using the funds in the next fiscal year doesn't mean that we can let loose of them. They are needed in the future, and so that would help us plan and be strategic as we move forward.
Yeah, and I would follow up with that by saying that's the thing that concerns me the most is you get a bid today and next month it's obsolete. How do you play with that? How do you contend with that?
I've got a magic wand back in my office.
That's what I wanted to hear.
You shall not increase your bid.
That's just a challenge.
Yeah.
For all public agencies or business in general. I mean, you see escalating costs.
I guess my real question is, how do you decide who you will actually pull the trigger on? Because you can't pull the trigger on them all at once, because then you will be contending with unforeseen expenses. So is there a formula? Is there or a ranking order in which you decide how you move through the first, the second, the third project?
Well, there's lots of different factors. Of course, if there's grant funding or other types of funding, we can secure those projects would probably move more quickly than ones that
With
are,
those, yes.
where we're struggling for funding, matching funding or whatever. And so, there's permitting issues. There's all different elements of projects that can increase or decrease the
Right.
speed of completion. And so, there's a lot of variables. And so that's why we have such a renowned staff here to manage all these projects. And
Yes.
It's not easy, and it takes a long time. And, as commissioners, I understand that it takes a longer term view to, manage this kind of operation. So,
Because frankly, looking at it, everything needs to be done. So, where does the ranking come in? How do you even figure it out? That's a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
It's like, that's tough.
And this is, like I said, working budget, so when a year goes on, additional change or whatever. You have flexibility, there are statutes that if it changes too much, we would have to come out with it, so. Budgeters, have a new budget reviewed, but I don't think any of our projects would trigger that at this point, but we'll cross that bridge if it arises.
This might just reminded me of an excellent point that our mantra has been safety first, revenue generation second, and then preventative maintenance and stuff third. So as it relates to maintenance numbers as opposed to capital. So yeah, that's kind of how we kind of help define how we move forward as far as prioritizing different things. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Commissioner Kaiser is also joined on the Zoom. He's the 360 number, so it would probably have to be, do you unmute them?
Yeah, so Commissioners Fawcett and Kaiser, do you have any comments you'd like to bring to this discussion?
No additional comments or questions for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. And next, Elliot.
Good morning, Commissioners. If passed, Resolution 2025-05 would authorize the Executive Director to execute a Connect Oregon grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation. February 2024, the Board applied for a $2.7 million Connect Oregon grant to plan, design, and permit the modernization and seismic improvements of Beaver Dock. As the Oregon Department of Transportation required a significant construction element, we pivoted to a plan to place the piles and caps necessary to extend the new pipe bridge built last year to berth 1. Across the top of this depiction is the main berth. Berth 2 is on the left, berth 1 is on the right, and you can see a diagram of a vessel alongside it. The white line on the left that goes from the shore towards berth 2 is the new pipe bridge that was built last year. Blue line that's starting from that new pipe bridge about 3/4 of the way from the shore towards berth 2 and continuing through the lagoon to berth 1 is the pipe bridge extension I'm describing. Placing the piles and caps for this pipe bridge extension will allow the product lines to be relocated from their current location on the old dock and will significantly address the pipeline seismic vulnerability. Grant is for $2.7 million. The port's 30% match is $1.17 million. As Guy mentioned during his presentation, the Capital Reserve Fund has sufficient funds on hand to meet the port's match. You may have noticed that the resolution in the meeting packet mentions a 20% match. It should have said 30%. The dollars shown in the resolution are correct. Once this first phase is done, the remaining work at berth 1 will be relocating the pipelines, the groundwork at the upward approach in the base of the new pipe bridge, and you can see those in those orange boxes on the shore. Upgrading the unimproved sections of berth 1 and the upstream approach, those are shown in orange. So the places that take the weight of the vessel and supporting the hose tower have already been improved. And in addition to that berth, in addition to work at berth 1, berth 2 will also need to be modernized. So the sequencing of the future phases is somewhat flexible as events warrant and will be made easier by extending this pipe bridge so we don't have to work around or build around active product lines. So for these reasons, Port staff recommends approving resolution 2025-05, which authorizes the executive director to execute the grant agreement, and that will allow us to proceed with the first phase of modernizing and seismically improving Beaver Dock. Thank you for listening, and do you have any questions?
Move to adopt resolution 2025-05.
Second.
Any comments from Commissioners Kaiser and Fawcett?
No comments for me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on to executive director's report.
Good morning once again. Busy month. Three of us went to DC March 9th through 13th. Bob Salisbury, Gina Cisco, and myself. Really interesting time back in DC. A lot of uncertainty and different things there. I don't know that we actually came away there with any kind of comfort on anything. But we were able to meet with USDOT on our Protect grant, and we're giving no certainties on that. The NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, has not been re-released on that. We're optimistic on that because it is infrastructure. So we're still hopeful because some of those infrastructure grants had been re-released with new NOFOs. So we're still hoping and waiting on that and gathering support letters. It was a good trip though, really beneficial. And if commissioners haven't made it yet, it would be, it'd be good for them to kind of experience it, to see how the sausage is made back there a little bit. And it's, really interesting time. Calendar's a little light. This is kind of finishing out the month here and going into the regular meeting in April 9th, which will be a little lengthy. And as we discussed before, the manager reports will come out monthly with the head of the regular committee. So we'll have those attached end of next week before the meeting on the 9th. So you'll have a little more detail there. One of the things I wanted to clue the commission in on was that we're having some issues at the RV park with some tenants that we are potentially ban their theft of services and overstaying their time and breaking rules. So we have 4, I believe, that we may have to trespass. Yeah.
Are they together? They're like
I don't know that they're separate.
separate issues?
Separate.
Common threads though with abuses. So we're working get through the process on that and making that as painless as possible.
What is the process?
Well, that's a great question. We have a letter that we've been circulating. Bob, take a look and make sure it's okay to send out, telling them how, well, we've already warned them. They've already been warned, so.
Starts with Marshall. Who.
Verbal warning.
observes The situation, will give them a warning. Give repeat offenders that take advantage of the situation. Marshall will run it up to fire code to Elizabeth and yourself. That will determine the seriousness of the issue. And then determine whether it's a warning or maybe it has to be a permanent ban situation. But then it's followed up by a letter and a phone call to the visiting guest. But this letter, we want to make sure is accurate and legal, and that we're doing everything correctly
Sure.
and considering the rights of other people, whether it's ADA and all these things.
Right.
So this is what we're going to be discussing in the house to make the process a formal, efficient process.
What is the maximum length of stay there? I'm unaware.
14 days. So that we're allowed to offer, and then they can vacate for 3 days and then come back again. But a maximum of 60 days per calendar year.
Understood.
Okay, Also want to let you guys know on April 10th is Oregon Public Ports Association is hosting Ports Day at the Capitol. That'll be at 4 p.m. where we'll be able to mix and mingle with our local legislators. But if any of you want to go down and meet with any of our legislators, we'll have to start setting up some appointments. So we'd have to go down earlier and set them up in the, the 9 to 3 range, I guess. So if any of you are interested in going down and either want to meet with them or just go to the reception, that'd be good to know sooner than later so we can either set up the appointments.
Do you see any benefit in having a commissioner go and meet with legislators
Sure.
ahead of time?
Yeah.
Are there things to be accomplished and
I
that you
think
haven't already?
just, Gina and I met with them 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday. They're aware of our issues. It's just if you haven't met them yet, it'd be an opportunity to do that, but we could also do that at the reception. So yeah, if we met earlier, we'd be reiterating what we talked to them about already and introducing. Thank you guys. And that's about it, unless you have questions for me.
I don't think so. Thank you.
Commissioners Fawcett and Kaiser, any questions?
No questions for me. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Okay, on to commissioners' comments, reports. Mr. Ward?
Yeah, I think want everybody to know that Scappoose is having their annual town hall and we will be there, and that is the 5th. Jean and I will be at a table there. That's always such a good meeting. I'm always impressed with the way Scappoose informs their citizens and the congeniality of being able to talk to everybody. And it's just a nice experience. So I encourage everybody to go if you haven't been before. Also, Robert and Nick were gone at last meeting, but we talked about the commissioners taking over some of the donations that we make to certain causes. And I will say that Ryan and I are both interested in the port being a part of the NAMI event that's coming up in June. So I'm going to be sending around information to all the commissioners, letting you know the costs and all the details about it, and just like to have your support in moving forward on that. And that's what I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Sorber?
I just want to thank the staff for all the hard work in this capital budget. And I know that's a team effort there, and looks like we got a lot of work to do. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Fawcett?
I echo Nick's comments on the hard work from staff on the capital report, and also Nancy's comments on the NAMI event. I'm really excited to support that in any way that we can. So looking forward to that. Thank you for setting that up, Nancy.
Sure.
Commissioner Kaiser? We have,
I don't know we do either. I haven't heard him once yet.
I haven't either.
Yeah, I got nothing from them. So
You got one?
nothing.
Oh.
And basically, I haven't done anything other than read the material for today's work. So, and thank you very much for both of you in terms of getting the project at Port Westward done and the budget processes. Very good. We have a lot to work on. Thank you.
And this is probably out of line, but I just now realized we've got 2 of our budget committee people here and we haven't heard from them. Any input from Paul or Bob?
My comment is just a stated tough budget time. Looks like there's things that need to be accomplished, and I will be putting together the other pieces that feed into the budget as far as operational and expenses. The revenue side somewhat dictates the abilities to accomplish all of this stuff. Good work together.
He had a good teacher.
And I don't think there's an executive session today. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, one thing, Commissioner Kaiser just texted, his only comment is he's anxious to review the DEQ ability to pay analysis, which I know Elliot is still working on.
And that was the long addendum to the agreement we had with, or not.
It's an update of a pre-existing determination they made years ago.
Okay.
It was just, its cover has been completed, it's just going through internal review now, so I think it'll be sensitive. Shortly, I should say.
We do also have Budget Committee member Paul Langner in attendance.
Right.
Do we have a, not now that you brought that, do we have a timeline on DEQ on, I know it's been years here, but since the last time they showed up?
Well, you saw there was 500,000 in the budget. That was based on our match with the EPA grant. So far, we haven't heard that that grant is on hold and we should have results by May. And they're very cognizant of our limitations.
Sure.
And if we spend all the insurance money on phase one, future matches will be more difficult. So one, getting the ability to pay to them is important for this next stage of what happens if that grant doesn't happen. And if future grants are no longer available to the extent that they were anticipated. So there will be, that could affect a lot of how we go forward on that, but they see the advantages of us retaining the insurance money for grant matches.
Understood.
Well, with that, I would say meeting adjourned. Thank you all.